Hello. So you might have seen the news about how bird flu is an issue again. It's something that kind of appears every winter when the migratory birds come across, but they're a little bit more worried about it this year. It's coming a bit earlier than normal, and it's spreading a bit faster than normal. So you will have seen that DEFRA have said that all captive birds, poultry especially, need to be enclosed and kept away from wild birds. But there's very little information out there on what you should do if you come across a wildlife casualty, so like a bird in distress. Obviously, there are a number of reasons why wild birds might need help during these winter months, and just giving you the blanket advice of don't touch wild birds isn't going to benefit anybody, because I know full well if I say to a member of the public who's come to me and they've got a bird that's been hit by a car or something like that, if I say to them, don't touch it, don't do anything with it because of bird flu, just leave it there, they won't listen. Equally, a lot of vet practices might choose not to see birds and or have just a straight euthanasia policy, which obviously impacts on members of the public finding help. So I thought I'd put this together and give you a bit more information about what bird flu is, some of the things to look out for, how you can protect yourself, so that you can kind of make your own decisions on that. Obviously, the advice is don't touch wild birds, but I'm just giving you some more information. We're relatively lucky as a rescue that we operate a fostering system, so we have animals in multiple areas, and that means that we can still accept birds. They're all kept away from captive birds, but we can have minimal numbers in different areas, because unfortunately there was a wildlife hospital down south where it was obviously the birds were found to have bird flu, and all of the birds on site had to be humanely culled, which is not something that we want to be doing. So yeah, I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about what it is and what you can do, and kind of how to protect yourself if you do come across a wildlife casualty and you do choose to intervene. So what is bird flu and why are people worried about it? So bird flu is something that birds catch, but the real issue is that it can pass from animals, so birds, to people and back again. And obviously we all know coronavirus, that's potentially come from an animal, and to look at what's happened, so they're trying to be extra vigilant to stop that becoming a thing, kind of thing. So that's one of the concerns. It's also a notifiable disease, so that means that if it's detected, you need to inform DEFRA. They do surveillances and kind of work out whereabouts it is, how much of a threat it is to both animals and people. There's also a really big possibility that it could have an effect on the poultry industry. Obviously, if larger numbers of birds are catching it, we're not going to have chickens and geese and things like that. And also the risk to the people working around those birds is quite significant. So it's all made to work together to stop it spreading and becoming a really big issue. So there are loads of signs that are associated with bird flu. It's not like, all right, this is definitely bird flu. So out of all of these symptoms that are here, the ones that are in purple are just signs of general ill health in birds. So for example, we get a lot of pigeons in that have got canker, and they are often wobbly when they walk, so that's the loss of balance and things like that. That's because they're dehydrated, they're often lethargic, they're often fluffed up. That's just general signs of ill health in a bird. But then you've got these other ones which are a bit more specific to bird flu, so they've got like swollen heads, they've got excessively watery eyes, they've got the twisting of the neck, the swelling of limbs, and the blue discoloration is really bird flu specific. So yeah, these are kind of the things that you look out for. Obviously, if you were to contact us, we would go through and ask questions that are quite specific to bird flu. We have to do that for every casualty. Just because a bird's been hit by a car doesn't necessarily mean it hasn't also got bird flu. So you might think, all right, well, this is a baby bird that's fallen out of the nest. It would only be pigeons and doves this time of year, really. But we still have to ask these questions. We need to do this assessment each time to make sure that we're not missing out on things. So yeah, these are the things to kind of look out for, and you can pause this video and write these down if you'd like to. The next slide is going to be pictures of affected birds. So if you don't want to see those, you can skip. But yeah, that's what's next. So here you can see they've got the swelling around the head and like their combs and things. This is all domestic birds. We don't really have many pictures of wild birds, but I just thought I'd put these in for reference because some of you might be poultry owners, but equally they kind of show a little bit about what you might see. This is something that's seen in wild birds where the skin goes blue and the legs are a little bit swollen. So yeah, I'll just put that in just for you to see. So how's it spread? It's spread by direct contact between feces and bodily fluids. So that would mean you somehow getting those things into your system. And you might say, well, I'm not going to eat bird poo, so I'm not going to get it. It's not quite as simple as that. It could be just a case of you not washed your hands thoroughly enough. You've got it on like your clothes or something like that, and you wipe your hands on your clothes and then your hands go near your mouth. It can be spread pretty easily, but using good hygiene, you can minimize the chances of that happening. That being said, it can also be passed through dirty food sources and water sources. So that's why we need to keep birds really, really separate in this during these times. So that like wild birds pooing in your, that's why they say put the solid roof on your domestic birds so that birds flying over aren't pooing and the poo going into your water sources or into your food and then your domestic fowl being contaminated. It's not airborne, so it's not going to be something that the bird's going to have respiratory issues and cough and you're going to breathe it in, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to take precautions around it. So we're advised to wear masks, and that's just so you're not breathing in like dust particles or you're less inclined to touch your mouth and things like that. It's mostly been seen in waterfowl, so ducks, geese, swans, but it has been seen recently in birds of prey. They've had 5 pheasants diagnosed with it recently, also in gulls and wader birds. So it is in a variety of species. It's not just as simple as you can say, right, well, you know, stay away from ducks because they're likely to have bird flu. It can be in any species. And the signs can be fairly non-specific. So this is why it's really important to talk to someone who kind of has an idea about what's going on rather than just diving in there. So what do you do if you find an injured wild bird? My first advice would be before you make any contact with that animal is to contact a wildlife rescue or a vet for advice. Talk to them, say, look, this is what I've seen, this is what I'm worried about. And they should run through this checklist of symptoms. There are some non-negotiables though, so don't touch any dead birds. If you come across a dead bird, then especially multiple dead birds, and especially if they're the species that have been really affected by it, so like waterfowl, you need to ring DEFRA. The numbers there, select option 7. And they'll go through the process of what to do there. Ideally, the birds are going to be collected and sent off and tested. They're doing a lot of tests on any dead birds, but the advice is really don't touch them. So I'm never going to say to you, touch a dead bird, bag up a dead bird or anything like that. You need to ring DEFRA for that. If you find that you must touch a wild bird, you can protect yourself a little bit by creating a barrier between you and the bird. So ordinarily we would use gloves, we would have aprons on, we would have masks on. That's obviously not necessarily something you're going to have to hand in like a casualty setting. So if you're out for a walk and you see a bird get hit by a car or something, you can protect yourself a little bit more by using a towel if you've got one to hand. Why you would on a walk, I don't know, but do you know what I mean? Like using a barrier so your hands aren't touching the animal and their skin isn't touching you. And ideally it needs to be something that you can throw away. So double bag that and throw it away, or boil wash or use disinfectant. You just need to have a barrier between you and the bird. You also need to wash your hands really thoroughly. That includes like washing your clothes as well, because as I said before, if any poo or bodily fluids gets on your clothes, then that can spread through there. So it's general hygiene, but being really, really thorough with it. And we should be all pretty good at that, given what's gone on in the last couple of years. We should be doing that anyway. But it's just being really vigilant and not just rushing in. So thinking about your biosecurity before you rush in and kind of grab a bird to save it. Just thinking about that bird flu is an issue and that you need to do something to protect yourself. You also want to be limiting contact, so don't be bringing the bird in and putting it in your living room while you wait for someone to come and help you. Ideally put them outside, keep them well away from any, if you've got any domestic birds, keep them well away from them, but just keep them away. Don't be going in and prodding and poking them and trying to do various things. Just once you've got them secured, leave them to it until you get further advice and help can be found. So yeah, that's the general advice that we're kind of giving, and just a little bit more information to make sure that you're aware of what's going on and ways that you can protect yourself while still helping wildlife.